protectors or earplugs. Protect others while you work. Keep spectators, children, and animals more than 15 meters or 50 feet away while you work. However, you should never operate a pole saw when you are alone. Arrange to have someone remain within calling distance outside the danger zone in case you need help. Now that you know about the steps to take for personal protection, let's look at equipment safety. Do not operate a unit in disrepair or with damaged or missing parts. All service or repair work should be done by an authorized Echo dealer only. Be sure that the saw chain or blade stops moving when the throttle control trigger is released. If this is not the case, have the unit serviced before using it. On guide bar and saw chain configured pole saws, proper saw chain tension cannot be maintained if the drive sprocket is worn or if the guide bar has shifted. The guide bar must also be properly clamped to the pole saw, be in good condition, and be properly lubricated to maintain proper tension. Always disconnect and move the spark plug wire away from the spark plug before you work on the unit or leave it unattended. When transporting your pole pruner, use the appropriate guide bar scabbard or blade scabbard. Check your pole saw over carefully before starting it. Be sure no fasteners are loose. Make sure the spark-arrested screen is in good repair and properly seated. The spark-arrested muffler prevents hot glowing particles of carbon from leaving the muffler. Do not operate the unit with a loose or defective muffler. When adding fuel, use the procedures recommended in the operator's manual. The fuel tank may be under pressure because gasoline vapors may have expanded. Always loosen the fuel cap slowly and wait for pressure to equalize before removing it completely. Add fuel only outdoors, never indoors. Always use an approved, safe container. Wipe any spilled fuel from the unit. Then move the unit at least 10 feet away from the fueling area before starting the engine. Do not smoke or bring sparks or flame near the fuel supplies. Never refuel when the engine is hot. Never add fuel to a running engine. Now that you've reviewed equipment safety, let's move on to operating safety. Before cutting, clear the area of materials likely to start brush fires or interfere with you or the equipment. Be sure the path of retreat is clear. It is recommended to plan 2 exit paths in case one becomes blocked. Do not go under trees during periods of high wind or heavy precipitation. If a fallen or broken tree creates an emergency, leave removal to a professional tree removal service. Do not operate a pole saw with one hand. This can result in loss of control. Do not overreach with the pole saw. A proper grip on the pole saw is with both hands, with the right hand on the rear handle and the left hand on the front handle. Use a firm grip with thumbs and fingers encircling the pole saw handles and grips. Before you start the engine or motor, make sure that the saw chain or blade is not contacting anything. When starting a cold engine, start by moving the stop switch button forward away from the stop position. Move the choke to the cold start position. Pump the primer bulb 10 times. Fuel will be visible and will flow freely in the clear fuel tank return line. Lay the pruner on a flat, clear area. With your left hand, firmly grasp and hold the throttle trigger lockout lever and throttle trigger in the wide open position. Rapidly pull the recoil starter handle until the engine fires. Once the engine fires, move the choke lever back to the run position. Hold the throttle trigger fully depressed and pull the recoil starter handle until the engine starts and runs. Release the throttle trigger and allow the unit to warm up at idle for several minutes. Once the engine has warmed up, gradually depress the throttle trigger to increase the engine RPM to operating speed. When starting a warm engine, simply move the stop switch button away from the stop position and pull the recoil starter handle until the engine fires. Keep all parts of your body away from the saw chain or blade when the engine is running. Shut off the engine or motor before setting the unit down. Carry the pole saw with the engine or motor stopped, the guide bar and saw chain or blade to the front, and keep the hot muffler away from your body. Shut off the pole saw immediately if the unit starts to shake or vibrate excessively. This could be a sign of danger. A part may be broken or loose. Use extreme caution when cutting small-size brush and saplings, because slender material may catch the saw chain and be whipped toward you or pull you off balance. When cutting a limb that is under tension, be alert for spring back, so that you will not be struck by the limb or saw when the tension in the wood fibers is released. Do not let anyone hold wood for you to cut. Cut only one piece of wood at a time. Do not bend towards or otherwise crowd the guide bar or blades, putting your body in the path of potential kickback. Do not thrust the nose of the guide bar into a pile of branches or dense brush where you cannot see if the nose is in the clear. Do not use the pole saw for felling or bucking. Only use one Echo-approved extension on your pole saw. Keep both feet on the ground. Working from ladders or in trees is extremely dangerous and should not be attempted. Working aloft should be left to professionals. Do not let the nose of the guide bar come near any solid object while the saw chain is rotating. Never let the guide bar dip into the ground. If the cutting attachment strikes an obstruction, stop the engine or motor immediately and inspect the cutting attachment for damage. Do not contact the ground with the chain or blade. Stay on the uphill side when pruning, as limbs may roll downhill when cut. When there are several workers, they should be stationed where they will not interfere with one another. During cutting operations, only one person should be working on a tree. If a branch or limb cannot be safely cut with your pole saw, consult with a professional. In the case of a jam, always switch the engine off and disconnect the spark plug wire from the spark plug before releasing or freeing the jam. Wear gloves when clearing material from the blades. Never grasp the sharp, exposed cutting blade of the pole saw. If you contact the cutting blade, serious personal injury may occur. Do not cut metal, sheet metal, plastics, or any non-wood materials with your pole saw. Do not use the unit as a hammer, lever, or crowbar. Do not run the gasoline engine indoors or where there is poor ventilation. Engine exhaust contains the deadly poison carbon monoxide. Now that you are aware of the safety precautions you need to take for safe operation of your pole saw, let's look at some of the proper aspects of cutting. Pole saws are designed for light to medium trimming of limbs and branches up to 20.4 centimeters or 8 inches in diameter. Before beginning each cut, always plan your cut carefully. Check the direction the branch will fall. Plan a retreat path from falling branches. Stand with your weight on both feet. Adjust your stance so you will be away from the saw chain or blade and out from under the line where the limb will fall. Hold the front cutting guide against the branch. This will prevent the branch from whipping. Be aware of branches immediately behind the one being cut. Accelerate to full throttle and apply cutting pressure. Do not use a back and forth sawing action. Ease cutting pressure when nearing the end of a cut to maintain control. Be ready to hold up the pole saw as it cuts into the clear so it will not follow through. At the completion of the cut, let go of the throttle trigger, carefully lift the pole saw clear, and idle the engine before moving it away. Make limbing and pruning cuts one at a time. Do not try to prune more than one branch at a time. When pruning a limb 10.2 centimeters or 4 inches in diameter or larger, undercut 1/4 of the limb diameter at about 3 inches away from the tree trunk. This will avoid pinching of the blade or saw chain and will keep the branch from stripping the bark. Finish the top cut slightly further out on the limb from the tree trunk. Then flush cut the stub at the branch collar. Long branches should be removed in several pieces. When the branch is supported on both ends and is to be cut in between for the finishing cut, undercut from the bottom side. When a branch is held off the ground by its limbs, determine which of these are needed for support. Leave these while you cut off all the other limbs and branches. You will lose support of the limbs as sections of the branch are cut. Go to the high ground side of the branch to buck off limbs. Make sure you have a retreat path should the limb roll toward you as the branches are removed. It is not recommended to bore cut with a pole pruner due to the danger of kickback. If the blade or saw chain is pinched, shut the unit off. If the branch starts to fall, get away fast to avoid serious injury. There are forces which must be controlled to avoid injury when operating a pole saw. They include pull, push, and kickback. Skating must also be prevented. Pull occurs when you are cutting on top of a branch with the lower portion of the saw chain moving toward you. The pole saw will be pulled into the wood and away from you. Push occurs when you are cutting on the underside of a branch with the top of the bar. It pushes the pole saw toward you. Being aware of these natural forces that will occur allows you to anticipate which reaction will happen and adjust your position and stance to compensate. Kickback may occur when the nose or tip of the moving saw chain comes in contact with an object, or when the wood closes in and pinches the saw chain in the cut. The unit could kick up and back or down and back toward the operator, causing loss of control. With a basic understanding of kickback, you can reduce or eliminate the element of surprise, which contributes to accidents. Skating occurs when the blade skips over the outside of a branch without making a cut. To prevent or reduce skating, always hold the pole saw with two hands and make sure the saw chain or blade has established a groove for cutting. Throttling down the saw chain or blade speed may help to get a groove started, but once the saw chain or blade has made a groove, throttle the unit up to complete the cut. Skating or kickback can be a dangerous situation. Consult your operator's manual, safety manual, or contact ECHO's Consumer Support Department at 1-800-673-1558 for detailed information. There are times when the solution to a problem with a mature tree is best handled by a professional arborist. Call for professional help when you don't have the expertise and proper equipment to safely accomplish the job. When the tree is too large and pruning requires extension equipment, like a bucket truck. When the tree is located near utility lines, buildings, or a highway. When major storm damage requires judgment on whether and how to save a tree. Or when a tree has a hollow, rotted trunk, thick, loose bark, and dead branches. This is extremely dangerous to disturb by cutting. Remember, safety begins with you. Always wear the recommended safety gear. Make sure your equipment is in proper working order and know how to properly operate your equipment. Thank you for watching, and thank you for choosing ECHO.